Welcome to another episode of Closing the Gap. My name is Maurice Schill and I'm the founder at Juju. My goal with this show is to make the wealth of knowledge that experts, business leaders, and innovators have on the subjects of leadership, collaboration, and appreciation more available and accessible to you. My hope in so doing is that it can help you close the gap between where your skills currently are and the ones you know you need to develop to become a better leader, team member, and person. My guest today is Anthony Fargeot. He is the general manager of Bench Platform. They're helping their customers streamline the ad buying and management process. Over the last couple of years, they've experienced some fantastic growth, and with that, have started to really focus on cultivating a better company culture. Anthony is a great advocate for building cultures based on trust, on relationship, on appreciation, and on care, but also uses a very practical and results-driven approach to bring the people around him on that journey. During the interview, he shares with us his journey into how he realized how important appreciation is as part of management and business, but also some of the lessons he's learned as a manager, and of course, lots of tips and suggestions that can help you create a stronger, more resilient culture that will fuel your growth. So without further ado, I bring you Anthony Fargeot. And so let's get started. Who was the last person you appreciated?
It was my colleagues Esther and Elliot.
What was it for, and are you close with those people?
Definitely, like they are part of the senior executives, just like I am. So we definitely need to work together. Actually, the appreciation happened this morning, first via email and then via Juju. So it was like, quite on point. We just had this initiative for us to be able to forecast more efficiently and more accurately. Esther, being the commercial director, she needs to be like very involved. She's got her finger on the pulse when it comes to the commercials. And Elliot is the finance director, so everything that comes into the finance and all those things sort of flow together. Are crucial to be sort of integrated, so they were great help in helping me in setting up a set of new process and tools to actually lead this initiative. And we had the first sort of outcome this morning, and I just wanted to thank them to actually help me achieve it.
One of the things that come across a lot is that the definition for appreciation can be quite broad, or there might be multiple definitions to it. So before we continue and sort of set the tone for today, when I say appreciation, what comes to mind for you?
It's a good question. Because of God, appreciation is really, first of all, it has to be genuine. If something is done with an agenda or a hint of a hidden intent, then it is not appreciation. Appreciation has to be genuine, it has to be selfless, it has to be a display. It can be words, it can be something else to show people that you appreciate them, that you enjoy what they have done for you, or what they are bringing to you, how they elevate you as a person.
How's your understanding of what appreciation is evolved over, say, the last couple of years?
Yes, so I read a lot about appreciation. First, my background is actually in neuroscience and psychology, so those are things for me. Everything that touches those subjects is still something that I'm very interested in, even though my career has evolved in a different direction. And now managing HR at Bench, for me it's something that is very important. Appreciation or feeling underappreciated, it's one of the biggest reasons why people are actually leaving a job. And I feel that there is still a lot of managers out there and a lot of cultures that don't really get what appreciation is about. So from the thing that I've learned, it's really about the importance of appreciation, even if we can feel it, just to be able to put your finger on it and to have some scientific sort of like, you know, experiment and research that can back that feeling was something that, you know, I've learned, and just refining some of what appreciation is. And I think the biggest one for me was the 5 language of appreciations. We have a tendency of thinking that people around us to project that the way that we think, the thing that we like, the thing that we dislike are the same for the person next to us. And it's actually very different. Some people like words of appreciation, words of affirmation as like, you know, appreciation language. Some others like a physical display, like a hug or a high five. Other people would actually like act of service. For people to help them. Some others, they would like physical stuff, they would like gifts. So to really understand what people respond to, how they feel they want to be appreciated, and to be able to bring this kind of nuances in the way that you're interacting with people as a senior manager, for me has been very important and quite a very interesting journey.
Have you always found appreciation an important part? You said you studied psychology and neuroscience, and I guess that came from an interest in human behavior, people. Yeah. Has appreciation always been something really important to you, or is that also sort of a development as you started working with people, as you learned more? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I think it definitely evolved. It was not something maybe when I was a bit younger that I don't even think that I realized what it was and how important it was. I think it's more like growing into my career and like, you know, having to be a leader for a lot of people. You have to do it like, you know, you have to do it in the right way. I don't want to be the one that is just flogging people and that people are fearing so they are delivering the results. No, I want to empower people, I want to encourage people, I want people to be at ease when they come to work here at Bench and deliver the results that we can deliver for our clients. So appreciation sort of like came more and more as the company grew and as I was getting more and more like, you know, more and more senior position in the company as well. Yeah, so that's pretty much when it came onto my radar.
Were there any specific things that happened through as you moved into the leadership positions as that helped you get to that realization, that conclusion, or was it just a gradual shift where there wasn't really a moment?
It was definitely something a bit more gradual. You had some event like, you know, sort of happening that some talent that will be leaving the company, for example, or some I don't know, like a flurry of event that has to lead us to restructure the company and to change things and for us to achieve like, you know, bigger and greater things. All those kind of elements made me like, you know, realize how important it is to appreciate the people that will actually help you achieve what you want to achieve.
I guess two different ways of looking at it. I think it's changing. Not everyone agrees with me about this, and especially some of previous guests as well have sort of still believe it's actually more of a hype around culture and let's work differently and let's support each other. I actually still believe that the majority of people just want to take that the flogging approach or the stick approach.
Yep.
Do you see, what's your opinion on that? Do you think that is actually shifting, or it's just because now we have access to more information and we see sort of that 1% and we go, oh, well, they're doing it, so everyone else must be?
I don't know, we need to see the data. I think it's very hard for everyone to see the data. I do feel that there is a shift. I do hope that there is a shift, because I truly believe that this is the right way to lead people. There is a lot of literature around that. There's a fantastic book about the culture at Netflix by the Chief Talent Officer, which is definitely a very different and good approach to leadership. There is some appreciation that is coming in there, and for people to be more independent thinkers, and to really come and work in an environment where they want to work, not because they're scared. I don't think it works, and I think that in the long term you're paying the high price for it.
Yeah, I think the science is definitely backing that up now, and now that neuroscience has come a long way. When people are in fear, it creates cortisol, it creates stress hormones. Now also know people who are stressed out are not as productive. It affects memory, it affects health. So I think once those two worlds, the subjective sort of realizing, hey, this actually works better, and the science slowly start coming together, I believe it's going to change and accelerate more and more. I want to dive into a bit deeper into sort of your experience with appreciation in the workplace. And to start us off, can you give us an example of when the expression of appreciation, or having that mindset to go, hey, I really need to appreciate someone, has helped either achieve the goals of the company or help avoid a big mistake or something terrible happening? So any example like that?
I think it's hard to really put your finger on what appreciation has avoided. There is definitely a feel-good feeling when to actually go and appreciate someone, or feel that people are appreciating each other. I think it really, there is a good vibe in the office when there is this kind of culture that we're trying to reinforce. I wouldn't go as far as saying, look, appreciation helped us retain talents. I believe that it is part of that, part of having this culture that is very supporting and appreciative. For me, it's one of the key elements for us to actually attract and also retain talent and grow them. If we didn't have this culture, I do think that they would have gone and find some other company that could offer them such things. But there is no way of knowing if my assumption is right.
What other factors would you, I guess, put into that, the decision that goes into, well, I'm going to leave? So research is telling us appreciation is definitely one of them. What are some of the other factors that perhaps also people might not actually think about directly? So pay, of course, if it's not matching.
There is definitely fair remuneration. Eventually, all the a good culture and good relationship at work, yes, that will keep someone in place for a long time. But if there is such a discrepancy against what is the market value of a person, of course there is an issue. For that, I would really hope that team members that feel that way will feel that they are empowered enough to actually bring it up to their managers and have a candid discussion about it, to see if something can be done or if there is any reason behind it. But that's another sort of big thing. I think relationship with managers is something very important, and not only your direct manager but also the people that are leading the company. There is a big difference between being a manager and being a leader. You can be a good leader and not necessarily a good manager. You can be a I don't know which one I said, leader and manager. It doesn't mean because you're a good manager that you're a good leader, and vice versa. And sometimes you have both, and this is where you actually have someone that is just great. So really encourage managers to actually act as leaders.
And I mean, I've just recently been spending a bit more time looking at this between managers and leaders and what that actually means. And interestingly enough, and I think this is also a big driving force behind this general change in culture within companies or where we're moving towards, is that millennials, who are going to soon be the majority of the workforce, they want a relationship with their manager. And to sort of take that to the next, they probably want a healthier relationship with all of the management, and sort of having that ability to go and have a beer together, or go and sit down and have a conversation, perhaps about some personal issue, or what they want to do, is clearly, and this is what millennials are telling the researchers and so on. Do you think that's a part of being a good leader, is being able to have those one-on-one relationships, and it's not just about, hey, I have this crazy idea, this is where we're going, and pushing everyone, but that there's something, I guess, a bit more social around and considerate around that?
Look, there is two schools of thoughts about should you keep your personal life and your professional life separated, or should you share as well, and I think to keep it separated, I understand the concept behind it. It's just very hard to do. Things that happen in your personal life will influence how you feel at work and vice versa. So without talking about getting too close or oversharing with the manager, I think to have a bit of a bond where sort of things are shared, and then if it leads to a greater understanding of both sides, it doesn't have to be only the employee that is being open with the managers, it needs to be the other way around. Showing some vulnerability as a manager, I think, is very important, as long as it doesn't come in the way of achieving the outcome that the company needs to achieve, and what your team needs to achieve and the employee needs to achieve themselves. So yes, there is this element and this bond between manager and employees that I think are very important to be able to properly manage people.
I always ask, I guess, a bit of a fun question in some ways, and imagine you had the gift or the power to give anyone the ability to become a really, someone who is really appreciative of the people around them, really knows how to appreciate even with all the intricacies, and is just genuinely an appreciative person. If you had that power, and you could give it to someone, and you can only give it to one person, who would you give it to?
Can I be very selfish and say myself? Sounds like the great superpower.
Yes, you can say yourself. Absolutely. Why do you say that?
Look, it's something that it's a very dear subject, for me. And I think sometimes where the thing that you're interested in might not be the thing that innately you're good with. This is what you're sort of being attracted towards it. And I think if I just remember my younger years, I definitely maybe was not as appreciative, was not as understanding or empathetic of the person that was sort of, if there was a disagreement, the person that I was disagreeing with, really thinking, oh wait, they actually are coming from this different place. They're just, no, they are an a-hole, and that's it. So yeah, and coming from that, I'm trying to be appreciative, but do I get it right 100% of the times? I think that would be very pretentious to say. So yeah, I would be actually curious of the effect that could have on people if I was able to nail it every single time.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. There's they've come up with some few interesting answers. Some people would like a few more politicians to be a bit more appreciative. something you said around and I agree with you on the fact that perhaps it's because in our past we weren't so appreciative, and then we at some point realized that, hey, maybe this is important, so now it's something we prioritize and we value.
Yeah.
For some people there's perhaps just that moment of realization, or whether it's a moment or a period of realization that's missing. And it would be interesting to figure out how to create that for more people so they can come to this realization. That's perhaps a discussion for another time. Have you ever personally felt the effects from a lack of appreciation within the workplace, or even if there's been another situation?
What has made me move jobs sometimes was feeling underappreciated, and feeling that I was hitting the ceiling in the role that I was, and I couldn't contribute. I didn't have maybe the greatest relationship with my manager, or so that made me move. And look, I think there is always two sides, like, of a story. You can feel underappreciated, and maybe you want appreciation from one person, but they don't necessarily realize that you are craving this sort of appreciation. There is nothing malicious behind it. So I think when that happens, it's always healthy to talk about it. And to really voice what is wrong, because everybody needs to take responsibility. When something doesn't work for you, you need to voice it, so you can try to find a solution with the people that needs to be involved in such a solution. At least try, and if it's not possible to find a compromise, this is when you need to move on. But
I think I 100% agree that is the right approach. I also know from personal experience that it can be really hard, really difficult. I mean, I remember in my first job I had, and there was a whole bunch of things that had sort of built up, and I was clearly not enjoying my role, and I sort of felt like that was the right thing to do. And so I asked for a meeting, booked in a meeting, and then it was just after lunch, and I can still remember sitting in the lunchroom and almost like hyperventilating, because I was just like, what if I say these things and then that's the end, So all the situations come through, and you sort of go, well, I guess at the bottom of it is fear of one being fired, or you can't say that sort of thing to me, so or the other one is just because that is vulnerability, and going, hey, these are things. Being shut down can be quite scary.
I think it's understandable, that these kind of fears sort of happen. I think when somebody is reaching the point of feeling that there is a build-up that leads to some anger and some stress, it's already reaching the breaking point. Things needs to happen earlier. When we're talking about building the right relationships with managers and colleagues, is where it comes into play. If that didn't happen, yes, this is where it's going to lead to. But look, unless the person is a terrible manager, usually the fears of being fired or being shut down are not necessarily justified. And it's all when I'm talking about if you're reaching breaking point and you have a lot of anger, your body language and your tone of voice and the the choice of words that you're going to use will come across as a bit aggressive, which then will make the other person kick back into being defensive, which then can trigger actually those fears of something. Actually, I tried to talk about it, but it didn't go the way I wanted, and I got shut down. Yes, but there is a bit of a reason behind it as well.
Do you think that there's a point at which it goes too far, or on the flip side of that, is there a point when if you really don't appreciate someone at that point and really show them that that attention and the energy required, it goes beyond a breaking point where it's now the situation is no longer recoverable?
Yeah.
Or is there always a hope to sort of fix it again?
Look, I think there is always a hope in fixing things. It's more around how difficult and how long it's actually gonna take. There is a lot of an element of trust in there. It is very hard and slow burning to earn someone's trust, but it is very quick and easy to break. So yeah, the longer you let a relationship go sour and not address it and let everything build up on suddenly both sides, the harder this is gonna be to fix. And we're talking about a work context as well. This is, if it's something that is personal, you usually will put a bit more effort into fixing it. When it comes to work, it's a very common occurrence of people switching jobs. So yeah, there is a point where you are not going to put the amount of effort required in fixing it.
And then I think that's why it's actually important to invest that time in those relationships when things are going well.
Yes.
So that when things, whether the business is in a tough spot or that person is in a tough spot, whatever happens,
yes,
you then have, it's almost like you've built up a bit of additional energy or reservoir that you can then rely on to get through those moments.
Yes.
Last question around appreciation, specifically around work, before we get into sort of any advice you might have for people perhaps in your position or just starting out, is that Bench has recently gone through a process of implementing a strategy and a process and a tool as well through Juju to help ensure that appreciation is expressed regularly and that it becomes part of the DNA. How's that changed the dynamics within the team and the cultures?
People express the need of being able to share appreciation, appreciating each other sort of in real time. So Juju was the tool to be able to provide that. And I think it made us a bit more accountable as to making an effort to actually appreciate people, even though sometimes well, we're busy, we don't have time for that. It always comes at the, it's always in the background. Oh yeah, I need to do that, and never get to it until we don't even realize that people feel that they are not being appreciated, and then something is going to break out of the blue because we're too focused on other things that we're not people. So in that aspect, I think it made us a bit more accountable of the energy that we invest in building relationship and appreciating the people around us.
Okay, so in this last part, I just want to finish with sort of collecting some insights, perhaps some resources, or any tips and advice you might have for people. And I want to start with any personal practices or tools you have to help yourself get in the right mindset perhaps, or have the right attitude that then helps you appreciate others.
Yeah. So I think the biggest one is my daily meditation. So I have 2 young kids, so night sometimes, and especially morning, is pretty hectic to get everybody ready and everybody get out the door. Then I drive to work, sometimes there is a bit of traffic, so I come to the office, I'm a little bit of a mess in my mind, and I always force myself to take 10 minutes just to do a bit of a check-in with my mood, and then to listen to a daily meditation, close my eyes, listen to my breathing, and really clear my mind. And this is where I can actually start my day at work and really prioritize and understand and relax and say, you know what, it's okay, you don't need to be stressed.
Is there a specific meditation practice you use, or do you use any of the apps that are currently out there?
I use Calm. I used to use Headspace, and it's Headspace is very good. I just thought that the value for money was a bit too expensive, and Calm like offers kind of a lot of things similar and also different with a better price point. So I switched to this one, and I really like it. I do need to have this sort of like guidance and those sounds like atmosphere with the sort of like the crickets chirping and the water running and stuff like that. And it doesn't, it sounds a bit silly, but it actually really helped to get into the zone of doing the meditation.
What if there's any the viewers out there, any people out there who are perhaps just getting into a management position or a bit more of a senior leadership position, what advice do you have for them, and perhaps things they should be doing on a daily or weekly basis to really invest in those relationships and show appreciation?
Look, I think there is a lot of like books, literature out there that are very good when it comes to leadership. Brené Brown is like, you know, a great author. Simon Sinek is a great author. The chief talent officer, I think her name is Patty McCord. 5 language of appreciation in the workplace. There is a lot of like, you know, very good resources that helps to understand what culture and management and dealing with people is all about. I think one of the biggest advice that I would give people is to put their ego in their pocket. And that's something I'm really trying to live by, and to see the better picture. If you are being put in a management position, yes, you do have some sort of power, like, you know, an authority over other people. But if you're starting to do things being driven by your own sort of ambition and how it can benefit you and not the bigger picture, it might take you some places, but eventually you are going to crash and burn.
Do you have any tips on how to keep the ego in the pocket, or at least in check?
Yeah, it's really about understanding what is the bigger objective. Put yourself behind the company's mission, understand what is being trying to achieve. Treat the people that you manage like people, like equals, not your minions. It's really not about that, and managers that are acting this way are not going to have productive teams. They are not going to get anything out of their people. They are going to have very high turnover. People are people, and in some ways when you are managing them, they actually have a greater power over you than you do over them, because if they leave the organization, your team is going to be impacted. You're going to one that would have to cope with having a hole in your team, and they will be off to another job, maybe with a better pay, with everything is new and everything feels like, you know, the grass is greener. So you will be the one who is losing.
I think that I really like that last part, that it is once you get it into your head that it's you that gets to deal with the damage.
Exactly.
That's okay. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. What about in terms of sharing that perspective and that mission with others? Perhaps there's someone watching who's already done meditation, been reading all of these books out there, and is now really more at a stage where they go, oh, how do I introduce this to the rest of my management team, or the rest of the middle management, or perhaps just to my team? Where do you recommend they start?
Look, it's really about understanding the need and what the kind of benefits that it will bring to people. This is the only way of, if you don't have someone's buying, either you will force them to do something, or it will actually not be done. So you need to really trigger for them to see the benefits into doing daily meditation, or I don't know, listening to some podcast or reading some books or whatever. And what works for one person, that works for me. It doesn't mean that it would work for somebody else, and somebody else can be a great leader and they will find their own way of what works for them. So it's really about gathering some insights as well, I think, of people that you respect, that you see as great leaders, understanding what do they do, how do they see things, what are they doing to improve themselves, and then to try out and see what works for you and what doesn't. The only thing that you can really encourage is to guide people into doing into growing into that part if they are seeing the benefit of becoming better leaders, etc. You can only give them tips and influence them, but they have to make their own journey.
Yeah, so having that a reason to do it and a goal, step one, and then letting them find their own way in a way. Okay, awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss around appreciation that we might have not touched on before I ask my last question?
I just want to add that a great thing about appreciation is that it's free. And you know what? It's like, not only it's free, but when it comes from the heart, it's also it comes with a very high value. I think so. A lot of people don't want to be exposed, like being shown as vulnerable and show appreciation to the team members. They have to get this sort of composed, and I'm the authority and the boss, and I'm never cracking a smile, and I'm never being close to anyone. But what I can do is actually to throw some money into perks, because there is a bit of a confusion about giving away stuff, so people are happy and actually truly touching them to their core by understanding who they are and giving them appreciation for what they do for you. So I think if more people, especially in position of leadership, understand that better, I think it will really serve a lot of businesses to be better placed to work with better cultures.
I think the more this gets discussed, and it's one of the reasons that I do these interviews, is just to have that discussion with more and more people and share the different intricacies and ways to look at it. And this has for me been another really insightful learning experience. That's what this is also about, and understanding other people's experiences and lessons through all of that. So thank you very much for joining us. If people wanted to find out more about you, or perhaps even get in touch, or even get in touch with the business that you're currently managing to learn a bit more, where can they go?
Look, the best way is to find me on LinkedIn. Send me a connection request, or send me an email directly. I usually read it. I don't respond to a lot of them because there is a lot. But if it's something that is not spam, I will definitely reply. You can go to our website, benchplatform.com. We'll have more information about the company, about our leadership team, and also any sort of position that is available at Bench. So yeah, that would be the way to find out a bit more about me and about the business.
Awesome. Well, I will be putting those links into the comments, so if people do want to find out more about that, they can do that and reach out and connect with you. But thank you very much for joining us in Closing the Gap, and maybe the future will bring another conversation or two or three, and as things progress and we learn more. Nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Morris.